word can. In some big way, I got this from a big, intense group experience where there got to be some interesting, tough groupthink about me, kind of against my character. And I kept trying to defend this thing. And I realized, I was like, yeah, I may speak in ways that people aren't used to, and I can learn to speak better. I messed up some of my speaking at certain times during this event. But also, I said to the people in the room, everyone in here is smart enough to understand me. And it may take you a while. You know, it takes me a while to understand some people. When I hear somebody who I don't understand, I know that they have something probably that I can catch up to. It may take you a while, but everyone in here, I said to them, everyone in this room is smart enough too. And it may take you a while, but you can catch up. And it's valuable what I have to say, actually. So soberly speaking, it seems to me that it's obvious that there's certain things that cannot happen in some way. And this would, if we know what the difference between cannot and can is, then it can keep us out of la la land, but also recognize where there's a possibility to go. Maybe we haven't been there before, but it doesn't mean not possible, actually. Like there's stuff about language that has to do with reflective speaking. Reflective speaking is what's been and what is, but then there's stuff about speaking that's like engineering or creative speaking towards something that we could actually do, maybe that's never been done before. So something that cannot happen is like, I cannot drive my car as it is through the ocean, actually. It won't work, it won't go, you know? It'll stop before it hits the water even, you know? It's obvious. And the same thing, this is kind of a silly example, but I say that I cannot impregnate a woman with a microwave, you know? It won't work, actually. That's not how it works. And there's like I admit, like there's some like La La Land friends of mine that would say something like, well, technically quantum physics could do anything or whatever, but it's not relevant in some way. It's like maybe. That's like a big maybe, yeah, maybe, you know, in the world of maybe. But like it's not relevant. It may be some super distant future too, or it may be that if you can, go ahead, like let me see, you know. But and then things like actually can transcend our inability, our stubborn stuck stances that say we cannot. I can't even understand why people would, whatever, some other opposite belief than they have. Usually it's a false frame that society's put on us of between A and B. If not A, then B. If not B, then A. And those are your only two kind of frames or choices. And you can kind of get out of those frames. And you can, within the frames, understand the other frame, actually. Almost anybody who understands me speaking English right now can do that, actually, beyond their stubbornness, actually. And people who can't understand me speak English, or maybe any language at all, maybe they can't do this, but generally people who understand me can. So giving the word can to what we know we would want to have go on for us, and not even having it be a question compared to the question of, you know, can I drive my car through the ocean? But can transcend our differences. Not only possible, but super relevant, super helpful. And I think in such a divisive political stance that our society is in, it's actually super leverageable. Like it's actually reachable. I've had it be that people who I've spoke to would say something like, I could never understand why da 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 da, or I could never blah blah blah. And I can say to them, dude, I can totally understand what you're saying. Actually, like what you're saying makes sense. Actually, like anybody who's just willing to let go of their own stubbornness instead of be stuck in their own stances would be able to see that from your position it makes sense what you're saying. And you're smart enough to understand that the other side, they're actually saying a similar thing, but about your side. And it is a slightly different way regarding this person I was speaking to recently about racism. And he was saying that he could never vote for Trump because Trump could become like a bad Hitler type guy. And I think there's reasons for him to think this that I think can make sense, actually. But I mentioned to him, the other side thinks your side is playing race more than they're playing race, you know? They're just playing it different ways. And, you know, you're a smart dude. We're having a cool conversation. Like, this is an awesome conversation. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, right? Granting them the grace that they do this. So often people state their positions and they're like, and you're too dumb to understand me. And that's like shooting yourself in the foot, actually. Also, there is like, the thing that comes to mind about that is that we get to grant the grace that you may not have all the time to be able to understand the other side. It may take a while, you know, and that's fine. Like, you got to bake some bread. You got to go take care of your kids. You got to do lawn work and things like this. the main thing is to know that even though you can understand the other side, also to know that you can't understand everything because there's not enough time, actually. So to kind of, what you can do is be humble about knowing that you can't help but be stuck in your own biases in some way. No matter what, as a perspectival being, you're going to be speaking from your perspective, from your position. You're going to have a partial perspective, and you get to have your part. You get to have your position make sense for who you want to be on your team and what you want to defend, and you get to do that. You get to say, this is how you get to call it as you see it. You get to explain your reasons. Your reasons could be, and to tell you the truth, it's just my knee-jerk reaction, or something like that. Or you get to say, and these are my reasons, and you're smart enough to understand why I think them. And you get to say, and I know I don't know. Like, this is we talked about this earlier. All these things that I'm saying right now are what I call, I think it's 7 keys to authenticity and intellectual honesty. And you can admit, like Joey can admit, that he knows he got caught in a cultural script from the time he was young, and he spoke stuff that really, like, with certain certainty for 2 full years, like, that were definitely, like, not true. Even for him, he was trying to convince himself that they were true because the way the society was around this guy when he was young, the culture, the religion that he grew up in. So he can admit, and I have done this hardcore, actually, myself, me, lied, exaggerated, diminished, hide, pretend, like. And I can't explain all the weird kind of sincerity around that. There's some sincerity around it. I can explain that, actually. And then I can explain that even with intellectual honesty, I know that it's not a lie for me to say that these are 2 pillows, but also that I might be asleep, actually. So even though I'm not lying about this, I'm like, it might not be true. So for me to say something that I know what is really going on behind the scenes with whatever Republican Democrat is, or whatever Wuhan lab is, or whatever, like, actually I know I don't know about that. Even I don't know about this in some way, Basically, it's just the point of that is to say that it's not a lie for me to say what's on that table there right in front of me. But in some way it is a lie for me to jump to a conclusion about I know what really is going on. And I have a lot of cool opinions. I have a lot of interesting opinions. I can explain why I think them. But actually about most of them, when they're about things that are where I'm not, far away from me, where I wasn't, and then I know I don't know, actually. So we can admit also that, like I said, we're perspectival, and being perspectival, we exaggerate, we diminish, we hide, and we pretend, kind of in almost like it's almost inescapable. But the way to escape it is actually just to admit that we do it. It's funny. Oh, and trust me, I don't ever exaggerate. That's an exaggeration. Or a diminishment of your exaggeration in some way, You do too exaggerate. You can't help it. You're based on your part. In fact, you should be allowed to. You should be able to call it as you see it. And also know that there might be an illusion. It could be an optical illusion in some, like I said, it might be a dream, but also it might be that it's not a dream, but it's just, for some reason, you're like, oh, somehow I missed that there was an apple on that table. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like, there was a way that there was an optical illusion that was happening. We can be humble this way. And humility is the capacity to admit that what I know I don't know might be more important than what I think I know. And that generally humans can understand this is a strong stance that we can put into the world, actually. And I notice when I do as an individual, it actually has effects, actually, like powerful effects on people. They're like, after they're done with speaking to me that way, they're often like, wow, I never heard anybody kind of like angle it that way yet. So like, I know that we can culture jam this way. We can infect the hive mind with this understanding, and it can help a lot of the dynamics in some really cool way. I know I believe that we can, and I know that belief is different than the belief that I can do anything. I can do anything. I can impregnate a woman with a microwave. No, I don't. I can drive my car as it is through the ocean. No, I'm not. I'm sober-minded this way. I'm not La La Land, actually. We were talking about some political candidates that we the only two really that we have been like kind of almost fully on board for, I would sign that guy up to like, hey, will you lead my boat? You know, in some way, like if I needed a leader for a boat, I'd be like, that guy's a good dude. You know, he's a smart dude. He's grandfatherly. He cares. He's, you know, there's been a few. Me and you were speaking about that, and it's interesting that somehow again these cultural scripts of like the stagnation of the past get stuck, where so many of my friends would say, well, I'd vote for that person, but they're never gonna make it, so I'm not gonna, you know. And that's like that script somehow getting in people's mouth is what creates the fact that that they're not going to win, even though like so many of my friends really really liked these folks. Like I've got the kind of circles that in my circles, I consider them to be more idealistic, so they like these two political characters that I also liked. And at the same time, I really like this guy, but he's never going to win, so so obviously I'm not going to vote for him. It's like, dude, shut up. You know, you're somehow the word can needs to apply to the fact that you can see how that kind of script is just you shooting yourself in the fucking foot, you know? And that whatever force, whatever stagnant, stubborn force of, I don't know, powers and principalities that would, that is the thing that would love you to keep that script in your mouth, actually. That, well, obviously we'd all like this, but that can't happen, so we're gonna have to do this instead, you know? And it's different than driving my car through the ocean. It's different than impregnating the woman with the microwave. I think it's much more obvious that cannot impregnate a woman with a microwave than can have a leadership that would be loving and kind and wise and would lead us to better ways to be as humans.